Hey everyone, what's up? How's it going? This is Finite MTG, and today we are diving into an IPA flashback draft that I did. Unfortunately, I wasn't recording during this one, but it was one of the sweeter ones I did during this season most recently, and yeah, for that reason I just wanted to cover it and share it all with you, or share it with you all. So yeah, starting here, pack one, pick one. One of the things about IPA that LSVs want to mention, for instance, is that a lot of the rares are very bad, so we don't have to spend very much time looking at them or thinking about them. It's also a really interesting format. There are a lot of things in this format that just don't really apply in modern day limited. It's very much a gold set, which sometimes happens in modern day limited, but there's really no fixing. And so for that reason, you're going to end up playing 18 lands a lot of the time, like it or not, sometimes even 19 or so. And it's also a very slow format, such that drawing first is something that people frequently do. I'm not going to say it's always correct or something like that, but it really is recommended, at least in this format. One of the things I like trying to do in this format, for one, I like staying away from green because I don't think green is particularly good. One of the main draws to green is just fixing, and I don't really want to splash for fixing in this format. If I get like a Kavu Climber or something like that, then sure, I'll play some green, but otherwise, I like trying to avoid green, and I like trying to play as few colors as possible without taking any serious hit to power level. So for that reason, happy here to start with Probe. This is a powerful card in one color, in blue, and if you're able to have the kicker in black as well, then it's very good. One of the best commons, I believe, in Invasion, the first set here, and yeah, happy to start the draft off with it. Alright, next up here, pack one, pick two. This one is a much less interesting pack for sure. Nothing as powerful as Probe going on, and one of the unfortunate things is there's already nothing that really works super well with Probe. I suppose if I were forcing blue-black, I could take like Slinking Serpent here, but 4-mana 2/3 Forest Walk is really not where I want to be. Another thing worth knowing about this format is that the stats are very bad on creatures. A lot of the old creatures are like 5-mana 3/3s, which then makes like a Hill Giant an above rate card a lot of the time. 2-mana 2/2 is above rate a lot of the time. But I'm not really interested in trying to maximize stats here or cling to my first pick, so I'll just be taking a Thornscape Apprentice from this pack, pretty much with the intent of saying, look, like this is a green card with a powerful white ability. I don't have to be married to my first pick. We'll see what happens as we continue through the draft here. In pack one, pick three, we have another kind of unexciting pack. Really not too much going on for us. One of the nice things about having taken Probe first is that it is a blue card and I don't have to be playing black for it to work. Kind of similarly, there's Tower Drake in this pack. So it's a blue card, a flyer, and it does have a white toughness pumping ability, but I don't have to be in white for this card to be playable. But I also give myself some outs to be like blue, green, white, Bant here, for instance, with the tapper that I just picked up. So Tower Drake is a nice option, and if I were to end up there, then I could play all three of my first picks. Alright, pack one, pick four. Well, this is a pretty nice pickup for us, so we were already thinking about potentially like taking some tappers, having some white abilities, and how about instead of a green one, when we know that I'm not a huge fan of green, how about a blue one that's on color? So now it's starting to become clear that we're really supposed to be in blue-white once we get this tapper, though this is kind of a tough one for me. Serpentine Kavu might not look like anything special, but 5-mana 4/4. I mentioned that 5-mana 3/3 is the going rate for 5 drops in the format, so 5-mana 4/4 is like pretty far above the curve in that regard, and the haste ability is nice too. But I'm very happy with the Stormscape here, not going to ignore the signals. Alright, next up, pack one, pick five. Well, we're talking about 5-mana 3/3s. the implication is that they'd be on the ground. So when you're able to add flying to a 5-mana 3/3, gets that much better. So pretty happy here to pick up a Fairy Squadron. There are some nice synergies with this one too. Lots of gating creatures in the format that want you to bounce your own creatures. So when you have one of those in your deck, you can play this out for 1 mana, end up bouncing it, replaying it later for the full 5. There's also Zap in the pack, which is pretty nice, but not something super appealing for us at this point. All right, pack 1, pick 6. So this is a tough one for me. We do have that pull into green at this point from the first tapper that we picked up, and Banalish Emissary is in the pack. 3 mana 1/4 is totally reasonable, but more interestingly is actually that green kicker ability to destroy a land. The mana bases in this format are so flimsy and unreliable that destroying lands is actually pretty good, and you do have enough time to try to do that kind of thing. Like Implode, for instance, is 4 and a red for a card that destroys a land and cantrips, which is a pretty decent effect, so I like this one too. But I just want to stay open here, continue with what we know about our blue and our white, rather than having to think about that green. So I'll just be taking Worldly Council at this point. I know some people are big fans of the Acolytes, the Obsidian Acolyte, and that kind of thing. I think for the most part those are, well, definitely good out of the sideboard, but otherwise I think you really need some ability to shift colors of your opponent's cards to leverage them the most. So I'm happy to make a more conservative pick here and just take the Worldly Council. Alright, next up, pack 1, pick 7. Well, earlier we took a Tower Drake and we weren't sure that we were in blue-white. Now we are sure that we're in blue-white, so it's even a better pickup for us. Not too much else to discuss here. Pack 1, pick 8. This one was pretty tough for me. So we have another kind of funny kicker card. This one is Prison Barricade. So it's 2 mana for a 1/3 defender, but if you kick it, it's sort of a double white Pillar Field Ox, because it loses defender if you kick it. So 4 mana 2/4 is a pretty reasonable rate, and having that nice option to have a cheaper, more defensive body is nice as well. I did end up taking Glimmering Angel over the Prison Barricade here. I'm not a huge fan of this card. Sometimes Glimmering Angel can be pretty good if you put some kind of aura on it, say like the Armadillo Cloak, and then you're able to protect it with that Shroud ability. But yeah, I think there's a chance that Prison Barricade would have been a better choice here. Alright, pack 1, pick 9. The only card in our colors at this point is Restrain. And this thing is not something I'm particularly excited to put into my deck. I'm actually more interested in Kavu Runner at this point. Feels like a bit of a signal that it's still here at this point in the pack. Not the most exciting card by any means. I mean, it looks like kind of a Hill Giant with a drawback, but remember, Hill Giant is above curve in this format, and it's really more conditional haste, in my opinion, than a drawback. So yeah, I'm actually fairly high on Kavu Runner, and we'll see whether it ends up making the deck. Alright, pack 1, pick 10. At this point, I'm just happy to take Capuchin Unicorn. Sometimes this thing will come in handy. There are lots of annoying enchantments in this format that are worth blowing up. Not too many artifacts, though. And pack 1, pick 11. I believe we just pick up another of the same here. We don't need any of the other cards in the pack. And pack 1, pick 12. I think at this point, I might have taken like Turf Wound or something like that. Maybe I took Mourning. It doesn't really matter. I think Mourning is the most playable card, but we're not really close to running any of these. Pack 1, pick 13 here. Looks like I picked up Aura Shards here, which is like the most powerful card in the pack. I mentioned there are a lot of annoying enchantments, so sometimes it's going to make sense to want this thing in your deck. Pack 1, pick 14. Okay, this time I actually took the Turf Wound, not before. And pack 1, pick 15, we actually get another unicorn. So we already have 3 unicorns if we need them out of the sideboard. Alright, pack 2, pick 1 here. Not the most exciting pack to open up for us. Might notice like Terminate in the pack is a pretty powerful and efficient removal spell, but in this format, Terminate is nothing compared to Magma Burst. So this thing only puts me into red, and it's 3 damage to each of 2 targets if you're able to kick it. So this is a really nice effect. If you're able to play this in the late game, you're not going to care too much about sacking the lands. It's one of the best commons in this set. Again, potentially the best common. And at this point, with that Kavu runner, we are really thinking about some kind of blue-white splash red strategy. All right, pack 2, pick 2 here. So these sets are pretty small. A lot of the commons are going to show up time and time again. So this time we're in Plane Shift, and the cards of interest to us would be Samite Pilgrim. So a healer. It doesn't prevent damage to you, but it does prevent quite a lot of damage to creatures you control. So effectively giving a lot of your creatures, or your creatures, a lot of toughness out of nowhere, slash just being an onboard trick that your opponent has to deal with. But there's also Silver Drake. And at this point I'm thinking, well, as good as Silver Drake is, and this thing is super, super far above the curve for this format, if that wasn't clear, I think that Samite Pilgrim is just a little more important for us at this point. We already have a lot of like 3-drop flyers, and at this point, something like a Samite Pilgrim just seems more valuable, and we'll likely be able to see Silver Drakes later. Potentially one would even wheel. We'll see. All right, pack 2, pick 3 here. Not too much that's really exciting going on in this pack for us, other than this Sunscape Battle Mage. So this is kind of interesting because it's a reason to put green back onto the table, at least potentially. But even without the green, we're able to play it as either a gray ogre or 6 mana 2/2 that draws 2 cards. So it's sort of a Muldrifter in that sense. And yeah, I mean, this thing is pretty solid in this format. We'll see if we're able to swing the green kicker. Okay, pack 2, pick 4, we're given kind of an interesting one here. So one of the cards we're interested in is Hobble. So kind of a cantrip, not quite pacifism effect. And you do have to really mind that can't block clause, because a lot of the time in this format, the quote-unquote pacifisms do leave your opponent's creatures able to block. But there's also Hunting Drake. And Hunting Drake can be a completely brutal card, but it does have some real issues. So 5 mana for a 2/2 flyer is very slow and very small. Even for this format, the body is just not ideal, so you really do need to be leveraging that ability. And sometimes your opponent's creatures won't be red or green, and sometimes you will actually control a red or green creature. So there's some real potential for awkwardness baked into this card, whereas Hobble can only be so bad, right? It's cheap, it cantrips, it prevents your opponent from killing you. So for that reason, I took the first Hobble here. All right, next up, pack 2, pick 5. So we do see a Treva's Ruins, which could be a land that we're interested in, especially picking up that Sunscape Battle Mage. There's also a Sea Snid in the pack, which, I mean, kind of the classic 5 mana 3/3, and this one is pretty decent. It's mana fixing, but also allows you to mana screw your opponents potentially. That said, Samite Pilgrim is, I think, just a little bit too powerful to be passing here for a Sea Snid. If we get a Sea Snid later, then I'd be pretty happy about it, but at this point, just need to stick to my guns on this Pilgrim being as good as I think it is and move along. All right, pack 2, pick 6. Well, we already have 3 unicorns. How about 3 Samite Pilgrims? So there's some awkwardness baked into this too. As good as this thing is, we are going to want effects that are different. We are going to want some threats. At some point, there is a little too much redundancy having all these Samite Pilgrims. And at this point, I actually made a pick that normally I would not be a big fan of. So Rushing River, it's interesting because like in Chaos Draft, for instance, this card is like very, very strong. The ability to bounce 2 permanents. In this format, I'm used to Rushing River being quite a bit worse. Because one of the features of this format is that a lot of the best cards have powerful ETBs, so being able to bounce your opponent's threats doesn't actually help you very much, and it's almost like a win more kind of effect if you do have good ETBs yourself. So I'm much lower on Rushing River in IPA than I would be in like Chaos Draft, for instance. That said, I do think it's really important for me to have some kind of interaction, and the Samite Pilgrim, more of the same, is just not going to help me. So here I'm happy to take a Rushing River this time. All right, pack 2, pick 7. At this point, well, not too many cards in our colors. Both of the cards that we could potentially run are cantrips, and I think at this point I was happy to take an Aura Blast. We're really not doing the color shifting magic stuff that Cisei's Ingenuity asks of you, and this thing is just kind of a more reliable card than Capuchin Unicorn, and also much more efficient in the ability to cantrip there. Alright, pack 2, pick 8, we somehow get a Silver Drake at this point, and I am absolutely thrilled about picking up such a late Drake. Kind of rewarded for taking the Samite Pilgrims early, because not only did we get the Drake later, but we also now have some cheap creatures that we can use to run the Drake out on curve, potentially. Alright, pack 2, pick 9. At this point, there's really nothing going on for us, so I'll just hate draft the most playable card, or the card that's available in the fewest colors. So that's going to be Morgtoad, just a gray ogre that sometimes acts as fixing or can potentially even ramp someone. Alright, pack 2, pick 10. I don't want to play this card, but Disciple of Kangi is a playable card, and it's in our colors, so could end up using it. Pack 2, pick 11. I think one of the most powerful effects here is Dedapult. You could also make an argument for Hull Breach, but there have already been Hull Breaches going around, so not going to stop anyone from being able to pick up one of those. Instead, we'll take away a Dedapult from a Black-Red Zombies gamer. And pack 2, pick 12 here. Some cards in our colors, but not very interesting ones. We're able to pick up a Daring Leap here, which is an interesting combat trick, but it's really not what we're into in this format. And pack 2, pick 13. How about just another Disciple of Kangi? And pack 2, pick 14. Suppose I'm able to pick up an Honorable Scout for the sideboard here. Pack 2, pick 15. We get a Keldon Mantle. Alright, moving on here to pack 3, pick 1. So this is a very nice one for us. We've already been thinking about a red splash. We considered a green splash when we picked up that Sunscape Battle Mage, but we never really went farther into the green. We never picked up like the Trevo's Ruins, for instance, which would really kind of support the ability to splash green. And we're rewarded here for looking at red with that first Kavu Runner, I believe, and then second the Magma Burst, now with Goblin Trenches. So one of the most powerful cards in the entire format. Just a super, super nice one to be able to pick up here. All right, next up, pack 3, pick 2. So at this point, we do see Manacles of Decay, which is potentially in our colors. If red is our splash, then we should be able to turn this into a pacifism. Eventually, remember that Hobble. The effects that prevent attacking in the format are not exactly the same as pacifisms, unfortunately. But we do have a Razorfin Hunter that's in the pack. So this card is very powerful, and in general you don't want to splash like 2-drops in cards that are this cheap. But the reason that this card is worth splashing is because it's super powerful in the format early or late. So even in the late game, Razorfin Hunter is worth having in your deck for sure. Alright, next up, pack 3, pick 3. Well, once again, kind of like that Goblin Trenches, one of the ways to foreshadow what I'm going to pick here is just some of these cards having a different printing that shows up in Magic Flui. So this time it's going to be Coalition Honor Guard. 4 mana 2/4 is already a solid body in this format, and that ability is just very, very obnoxious. It's pretty good against removal spells. Anything that's going to deal like 2 or 3 damage, that kind of thing, is now not particularly useful, but the real silent killer is the way that Coalition Honor Guard affects your opponent's pump spells. Alright, pack 3, pick 4. So earlier we were interested in a Manacles of Decay, and now we're able to pick one up here. We do end up passing a Standard Bearer, And this pick is pretty close. I wouldn't fault anyone for sure for taking the Standard Bearer instead of the Manacles. That said, Standard Bearer is significantly worse than the 2-4 version that we just picked up. And pack 3, pick 5. Much earlier, we were interested in flyers, 2-1 flyers for 2 and a blue. And we're able to pick another one up here of those in Coastal Drake. We don't have the Flame Tongue Kavu, the kind of mythical uncommon from this block that really makes, that really shines with Coastal Drake. But even so, sometimes you're going to be able to bounce your opponent's Kavus, or even like save your own from removal, something like that. And it's just a fine effect regardless. All right, pack 3, pick 6. So here we have an interesting one. So one of the cards in the pack here is Diversionary Tactics. This card is very interesting because I think that it could be very powerful. It is not quite like an opposition, of course, but just having the ability to use your creatures to lock down your opponents can be very strong. It's going to be strongest, of course, in sets where there's like a real token theme. You're able to pick up like Raise the Alarm, that kind of thing, and leverage this and make this really efficient. And even though I do like the design of this card in general, I think in IPA specifically it's a bit weaker because there aren't too many token generators, things like that going around. That said, we do have Goblin Trenches, which is one of the best cards in the entire format, and it also happens to generate tokens. So at this point, I'm actually pretty happy to pick up a Diversionary Tactics over like a Quicksilver Dagger, and to say, well, Goblin Trenches is already pretty backbreaking. How about it just wins the game for me if I'm ever able to draw the 2 enchantments? All right, pack 3, pick 7. At this point, we are pretty committed to splashing red, and we don't really have any fixing, which is kind of par for the course in this format. But how about a Helionaut? So 3 mana for a 1-2 flyer, absolutely abysmal in almost any other format. But one of the really interesting things about IPA, and one of the things that I kind of learned this season, even from this deck, I would say, is that Helionaut is actually playable. So I've seen this card many, many times in Chaos Drafts, for instance, and I have just never been in the market for a 1-2 flyer for 3, even with that mana filtering ability. But in IPA, a 1-2 flyer is a real game piece, and having that ability to filter mana is actually pretty valuable. And there are not too many ways to do that in white. There's maybe like Mana Silex or something that was in the draft earlier, but that is just not a game piece. So Helionaut, yeah, actually a pretty decent card for us. All right, pack 3, pick 8. Well, not too much going on in this pack at this point. Looks like at this point I took Shield of Duty and Reason, which is not something I'm particularly excited about, but it is a fine card. You can put it in the sideboard and not be too embarrassed about it. Next up here, pack 3, pick 9. Well, there's really not too much going on for me at this point. Not super interested in an Angel Fire Crusader. That red pump ability is just not going to be nearly as good as like the ability on Tower Drake, for instance. But you do what you can in IPA, especially this late in one of the packs. Pack 3, pick 10, we get a Bloodfire Infusion. We're not really interested in playing it, but the rest of the stuff doesn't matter for us. Pack 3, pick 11. I believe at this point we get a Kavu Glider, which could be okay. Don't really need the second Angel Fire Crusader. And here I think we get a Raka Disciple. So lots of cards in this pack that would be playable if red was one of our main colors, but of course it isn't, so it doesn't really work. And pack 3, pick 13, I believe we get a Squeeze Embrace here, one of my absolute favorite card names. And we get another one here, pack 3, pick 14. And last up here we get a Dragon Arch. Alright, so this is how we ended up building the deck. So as expected, we do have 18 lands here. Note that we are running that Sunscape Battle Mage. We are running Probe, even though we don't expect to have the green or black mana to really make them hum. That said, we do have Helionaut available to fix our mana and, at least in theory, reach those other colors. And yeah, otherwise, very low curve for this format in this deck. lots of flyers, 2/1 flyers for 3. We do have that Goblin Trenches plus Diversionary Tactics package. Otherwise, we're splashing red for Magma Burst and Razorfin Hunter. The Kavu Runner is significantly more dubious, but I think it's at least worth a try here. And yeah, we'll jump into the matches and see how this goes. All right, here we are back for game number 1 of round 1 here. I believe the opponent put me on the play, which is already a sign that they know what they're doing in this format, because drawing first is going to be very good in this format in general. We have a nice capable hand here. We get to lead off playing some lands. Opponent has a Dream Thrush, which is pretty nice. We didn't see one of those during the draft. Fortunately for us, we're not getting mana screwed anytime soon. We're able to run out our Tower Drake. Opponent has a Quirion Explorer. Get to go ahead and attack with Tower Drake. Opponent turns off our white mana, which we don't care about at all, as we're able to play another planes and pass the turn. Opponent now has Living Airship, and suddenly things are very awkward for us. The opponent has a 2/3 flyer with a regenerate ability, and my 2/1 flyers are just going to not really do a whole lot here. So we end up running out a Tower Drake at this point, keeping the land in hand so we can potentially discard it to probe later. Opponent has a Necra Sanctuary, and they play a Dueling Ground, so they've assembled this kind of enchantment prison for us. So this thing says that if they control a green and a white permanent, they pretty much get to dome me for 3 without attacking, and they just played a green and white permanent that says that pretty much it's single combat for creatures. So it's kind of a wombo combo for them. I finally get to probe here. Looks like I just pitched the 2 lands. A bit punished for how I tapped as I draw that Stormscape Apprentice here, but at some point I need to figure out how I'm going to try to survive this, and the opponent even gets to attack with their Living Airship, which is just super bad news for me. At this point, yeah, I get to run out the Silver Drake, bounce the 1 mana tapper that I just played. The opponent doesn't get to attack with their airship anymore. Yeah, so at this point we do have that Diversionary Tactics. We're going to start tapping the opponent's potential blockers so we can try to race the Dueling Grounds, Necro Sanctuary, all that nonsense. Though it's going to be hard, even attacking for 3 here each turn. I'm already down to 6. Opponent has a Penumbra Bobcat. We get to start tapping the opponent's flyers. Of course, they can't really attack anywhere else. We get to attack for 3. But one thing that's important to note here is that the opponent's enchantments are killing us. We can't attack with multiple creatures because of that Dueling Grounds, but we do have that Rushing River that we picked up, which can potentially bounce the Dueling Grounds and allow me to try to steal the game out of nowhere here. So we tap the opponent's flyer, and we're going to tap the opponent's other flyer. I think at this point we go for the Rushing River. It looks like I decided not to go for the Rushing River right away. But we're still going to sack a land here. We're going to bounce these 2, and the opponent scoops it up, so we're able to survive. And I guess one of the reasons that it's really important to bounce both of the white permanents here is because that way the Necro Sanctuary won't hit us down to 0. And yeah, we are fortunately able to get lethal just in time here. So very lucky way to survive in game 1. All right, so here we are in game 2. Once again, the opponent's going to put me on the play, and they're going to mulligan. And we get to just run out a Samite Pilgrim. I imagine after this I'd probably boarded in Aura Blast, and I would guess some number of Capuchin Unicorns to try to answer the opponent's very annoying and problematic enchantments. At this point we get to just attack with the Tower Drake, and we have that Samite Pilgrim back on blocks, but the opponent has Dueling Grounds again. Once again, it's pretty scary. We draw Magma Burst, but we don't have red mana. We get to keep hitting them for 2 damage, and next turn we're going to draw a couple cards. The opponent has Raka Sanctuary, and once again these Sanctuaries are just going to destroy me. So this time, instead of dealing 3 or making me lose 3 life, they're going to deal 3 damage to my creatures. So that's going to go very poorly for me. I just don't have enough domain to prevent the 3 damage with my Samite Pilgrim, very unfortunately. Like if I had just spiked a mountain, for instance, I'd be able to save the tower drake there. Kind of weird that they didn't, I mean, I guess I understand why they didn't gun down the Same White Pilgrim. I don't even know if they saw the red mana from us, but they do try to get the Sunscape Apprentice here, which is the one that we can save, so kind of an interesting choice from them. But they also play Namada, which is a completely broken card in the format, and we're still just sitting here on our blue and white mana. This time they shoot down the correct one, but there's just not much we can do here. We get to probe, and we just scoop it up because ultimately there's just nothing we can do here. Even if we play the Fairy Squadron, it's just going to die to that Raka Sanctuary. So yeah, just too little too late versus really powerful cards like Namada and Raka Sanctuary. So moving on to game 3 here. Alright, so here we are for game 3. We are going to put the opponent on the play, as is the tradition in this format. Opponent has a Sunscape wall guy there, and they do have that Reef Shaman once again. This time we actually have the red mana, which is pretty nice. We get to run out the Tower Drake. Presumably the opponent's going to try to take us off of blue mana here. Oh no, they're actually going to fix their own stuff. Sure, they have a Coalition Honor Guard. We have one of those as well. We're just going to run that out here, and we get to attack for 2 in the air. And we've kind of got the ground walled out now, with each player having a 2/4. They also play Dueling Grounds, which isn't doing too much for them at the moment. We play a Tower Drake here. I'm not sure about this. I think it was likely better to run out the Silver Drake, since they do have Dueling Grounds in play, right? Anyway, we do get to Worldly Council here, and looks like we're just going to pick up that Razorfin Hunter, which is really nice and really powerful. We get to run that out, and then pretty soon we get to start blowing up some of their creatures. So at this point we do bounce a Tower Drake. I think technically there it was better to attack first and then bounce the tapped Tower Drake, but that doesn't really matter very much. Now one of the things we get to do, we get to ping their 1/1 Flag Bearer for free. We get to just attack, run something out here, and then starting next turn we get to kick a Magma Burst and use the Razorfin Hunter to finish off the Flag Bearer. So that's going to be a pretty nice thing to do here. I think I'd probably just hit the opponent for 3 at this point. Yeah, because we're going to be just attacking for 3 anyway with the Silver Drake, so it's kind of the same to hit the opponent for 3 versus to let them chump, and they don't chump, which now means that we get to spend only 1 damage on that that Dream Thrush. But let's see here what happens. Oh, okay, so we draw the Aura Blast, and I assume that gives us lethal here. So yeah, we get to blow up the training grounds, and we just get to attack with everybody and ping that Dream Thrush. That's gonna do the job here. All right, here we are back with game number 1 of round 2. And I think the opponent chose to play first here, which is unusual, considering I feel like this player generally knows what they're doing. In these formats, I've seen their name a lot. And we get to run out an early tapper here. We have a pretty nice hand. I think we get to go ahead and run out the Tower Drake now. Opponent attacks for 2, no plans for us to block. And they play something that looks like it's 4 mana. Yeah, they play Fire Screamer, and we draw the Goblin Trenches, and we do have that Helionaut to fix our mana. So at this point, we get to attack for 2 in the air. We get to use the Tapper on the Fire Screamer, and just kind of saying, please, please don't kill my Helionaut. And they go for Bog Down, and this is one of the funnier moments with Bog Down, right? Because they didn't kick it here, so it's just a Mind Rot, quote unquote. Just we're going to be pitching the island no matter what, but the question, we know we want to keep Goblin Trenches. Question is, do we want to keep Diversionary Tactics or Magma Burst? And we already know that Magma Burst, that Goblin Trenches plus Diversionary Tactics is kind of a wombo combo, so we are going to end up pitching Magma Burst here, and for the opponent this must just be the scariest discard ever. Like, I have 2 cards left in hand, and Magma Burst with Helionaut in play is somehow worse than either of the cards left in my hand. So at this point, we just get to draw the natural mountain, which means it doesn't even matter if Helionaut dies at this point. We're going to play the more expensive card. We don't need to play the trenches right away. Not worried about like another discard effect or something. I mean, it would be pretty terrible for us if they had one, of course, but just not going to play around it. And at this point, we get to attack with everything. We have one Goblin Trenches activation up, and therefore we also have one Diversionary Tactics activation up. Opponent goes for a big Haster. We just get to sack a land here, and we now get to tap down that 6/5 that the opponent just played, and this game is just pretty much over at this point. We get to play Tower Drake, attack with almost everything here. We're going to leave one soldier back and the Tower Drake back, so now we have 2 tap activations. We get to activate the Goblin Trenches, tap the 6/5 again, and then tap that Fire Screamer, and the opponent can only attack for 2. And yeah, I mean, this is just a huge, really formidable board state for the opponent to deal with. Granted, if they just had a way to deal like 2 damage to everything, then we'd be getting crushed. But yeah, we are just in really good shape with this board, kind of unlosable position. So once again, well, this time the opponent is going to put me on the play, which I do think is correct. Maybe last time we did win the die roll, I don't really remember. And we get to start here with an early Razorfin Hunter, which is just great for sure. And the opponent just has to pass. We find the Helionaut. Opponent has Aggressive Urge on our Razorfin Hunter, so a little bit you know, sloppy on the timing here. You're not supposed to play this pre-combat because now I get 2 damage out of my Razorfin Hunter as opposed to 1 with the ping. So yeah, if you just wait for me to like either already have attacked or just like click through combat, which is what I would have done, then basically you don't lose an extra life there. And the opponent does have Jilt here, which is kind of a big problem. They kill my Razorfin Hunter, which is unfortunate for me, but you know, ultimately I'm still in good shape here. I have a couple flyers, their board is empty, and I have Worldly Council, which digs through 3 cards. They play Kavu Climber, which is quite good. We draw Diversionary Tactics, we find a Fairy Squadron, we run out the tactics here, attack for 3. Opponent attacks for 3 as well and plays a Volcano Imp. And at this point, I believe, yeah, we just attack for 2, offer this trade, the opponent accepts it, and then I think, yeah, we're just going to kick a Fairy Squadron here as opposed to doing the Silver Drake play, which could have been better. I don't really remember why I made this choice, but I think one of the nice things about this is I now get to attack with both, and then I get to bounce the Helionaut, and then replay it, which sort of gives it vigilance, which means I now get to use the tactics. Opponent attacks me for 3, go down to 14. Alright, so the opponent's down to 8, and at this point we draw a Hobble, which we get to play on a Gladenar, which is very nice, and we draw a Coastal Drake, and I think at this point we are going to leave the Helionaut back so we can tap the other Gladenar. Yeah, just hit the opponent for 6, and the opponent scoops it up. Alright, here we are back for game number 1 of round 3 with this really nice deck. Once again, looks like opponent's going to put me on the play. We get to run out a Samite Pilgrim here, turn 2. The opponent plays an Urborg Skeleton. We don't get to attack through it because they do have the Regenerate up, but we do get to run out a Coastal Drake. We get to attack here with our Drake. Opponent could have like Exclude or something for this mana, but we do successfully run out the Coalition Honor Guard. Opponent's on Grixis, which can be a scary deck to face. Get to just go ahead and attack here with both. Interestingly, they don't regenerate the Urborg Skeleton and choose to block, so it's kind of a free attack on our part. Just going for that. And then the opponent does go for a Jilt here, but we do get to actually save our Coastal Drake, so sort of makes sense as to why they didn't go for the block. That said, I think they were probably supposed to Jilt first if they wanted to, though Jilt is really just not going to do much in the face of Samite Pilgrim here. Samite Pilgrim, once we've gotten our 3 land types, is just really pretty nutty. And we just have a 2-turn clock on the opponent already. Opponent has Marsh Crocodile. They're going to pick something up, make us discard. They do have this nice combo here where they get to blow up a white creature by returning that 5 mana 3/3 to their hand. But that thing is not even a big part of our game plan at this point. Yeah, we get to put a Magma Burst into our hand, attack for 5 here. And we have Rushing River and Magma Burst. Probably not going to sack all of our lands to cast them both, but yeah, writing's on the wall for the opponent, and we move to game 2. All right, so here we are for game 2 of round 3. Once again, the opponent is going to put us on the play. We're going to keep this hand, which is pretty dubious, with all plains and 3 blue spells. Now 4 blue spells. Opponent has mana Silex, but we do rip the island off the top. And at this point, we just go for the tapper, which is, you know, a little counterintuitive to run out something so mana inefficient this way. But one of the nice things about this is, oh, and actually, if I remember correctly, the reason I did this is because the opponent had Reef Shaman in play, right? And Reef Shaman really does have that ability to hose the opponent's mana. And since we do just have the one island, at this point I decided it was pretty important to get the tapper into play so we can start locking down that Reef Shaman and unlocking blue mana to use. Though it is awkward that they did draw a Slimy Kavu here too, which means that oh yeah, and then, okay, we do find another island there with the Worldly Council, but I believe the opponent was supposed to use Slimy Kavu there to just try to continue messing up our mana. Looks like the reason they attacked with it was so they could run out a Lava Zombie, but now we're able to untap with all the blue mana in the world here, as opposed to not having access to any, so this is significantly better for us, of course. And we get to start locking down their Lava Zombie instead of their Reef Shaman, and we even get to kind of try to trick them here by holding that island in hand last turn, so it looks like we're still missing blue, and sure enough they do go for that. And yeah, we just get to keep tapping this here. And they play at this point a Fairy Squadron, which is annoying for sure. So somehow we're going to need to figure out how we're going to beat that. Oh, and we do actually get to bounce the Slimy Kavu with Coastal Drake. I'm glad I remembered that because I almost forgot. And at this point we get to run out a Manacles of Decay on the Lava Zombie. It's not blocking our flyers, and that means we get to start using the tapper on the 3/3 flyer. And they get to Marsh Crocodile here, I think return the Lava Zombie, which is a little bit annoying for us because it means the Manacles fall off. We pitch a Razorfin Hunter, which kind of like discarding Magma Burst earlier, it's just a sign for the opponent that, you know, they're in very bad shape here. And at this point, we kind of have everything that we need to keep going with this game here. Opponent gets to attack for 4. But after this turn, we're going to have double Samite Pilgrim active. We have 4 power in the air. We have a tapper for their flyer. We have a Rushing River in case anything goes wrong, or in case the opponent has removal or anything like that. They go for a Death Bomb here. I think yeah, it looks like I go for the Rushing River, and I assume at this point that I bounced my Samite Pilgrim and their Marsh Crocodile, because they don't actually have anything else that they can run out. Note that they have Lava Zombie and Marsh Crocodile in hand at this point, so that Lava Zombie is looking very awkward. Yeah, they do get to run out the Marsh Crocodile, bounce that Reef Shaman. We pitch a land that we didn't need. They have a Vodalian Zombie here. And we just get to keep attacking for 4 in the air. And yeah, our life total is super high. We get to prevent the damage from the Vodalian here. Opponent has something, oh, they have Gitu Fire, X is 1. So this really feels like a concession. Gitu Fire is like really one of the best rares in the format. Pull that one up in a second as well. And we just get to attack for 4 here. And that's pretty much that. So at this point, we have we have successfully trophied, so that's great. So Gitu Fire, just to pull that up for you briefly, it's a blaze effect, but kind of like Rout and like that whole cycle, you can pay 2 more mana as you're casting it to give it flash. So This is one of the most effective ways in the format to just kill your opponent from a high life total. You really can reach large amounts of mana to just burn your opponent out from a lot of life in the format. So G2 Fire on a Samite Pilgrim, I'm pretty happy with. But anyway, yeah, thanks for watching. Hope you have enjoyed this video, learned something about IPA. Note that also this deck is pretty unusual just with how low our curve was and how aggressive we were trying to be. We didn't even lean on the Goblin Trenches very hard, which is pretty nice. But yeah, still happy to draw first in the format, even with a deck like this that is more aggressive or tempo oriented. But anyway, yeah, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.